A quick show of hands. Who's here and they are currently university students? I think that's everyone. Is anyone here a college student? Curiosity? No? Okay, so everyone here is university. That is good. So that's kind of where we can start to aim the questions. The first one, which I typically tend to open up with this, is what makes a graduate shine effectively? So if people are going to be applying for jobs, and we can go through the CV and portfolio, and we can talk about that in a moment, but what really makes like a graduate shine like from that pile of applicants? Does anybody want to have a look?
I'll go. I can talk about it from only a concept, obviously, point of view. But just to be transparent as well, I did used to teach here, so I used to see it in students as well from that approach. But it's been a few years now, so I think one thing that I think makes people stand out with concept art is just understanding what the job actually is. It's not illustration. We spend a lot of time just drawing like technical drawings and orthos and speaking to other people about what they need, and like 3D, VFX, tech artists. We're never just like in our own bubble, just working on our own. I think that's super important. And just like, I probably mentioned this a lot, so I apologize, but your soft skills, just being able to like talk about your work. Like if you come up to me somewhere like this, I expect you to be able to not just say, oh, I've got this project, like, and make me look through it. Like you talk me through it and tell me about it, because that's what you're going to be doing in the job. And I do think that you might not be the most amazing artist, but if I can see that I can work with you, I think that stands out to me more than anything.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to add to that one?
I can go. I'd say, like, just to echo off the previous point, like, soft skills are super important, especially at sort of entry level. They are particularly hard to get across on actual applications in terms of, like, your CV, but that's something that we would get from, again, echoing the point of, like, events like today where you're networking, you're speaking to people, then we can really assess those soft skills. A lot of the technical stuff we can teach, but I would say your portfolio has the most weight behind it. So like a lot of people obsess about the CVs. At the end of the day, it's sort of a means to an end. As long as you've got contact information, it's all very factual, but your portfolio is, going to be the thing that sells you. And if you what I've been doing today, so a lot of people are asking me about their art portfolios. I've shown them the last environment artist that we hired as a junior, sort of quite recently. So looking at the standards of who is actually getting hired, where does my portfolio measure up to them? Because that is the thing that's going to make you stand out.
Cool, thank you.
I think for me, it always comes in programmer land is showing me something super cool and technical that you've really gone deep on the subject. You've not just done a surface level. I turned these systems on in Unreal and I've made this really cool flashy thing over here. It's somebody who's gone, I figured out how this engine did it and I wanted to do it myself. So I've written my own with its own pipeline or my own tool or my own piece of tech that does the same thing, and I've compared and contrasted, and I can tell you where mine's better and theirs is better and do all of that good stuff and really actually get nitty-gritty with the code that you've written, and almost not just made a small little, very well presented still, but a full game with like a flow and a high score screen and all that sort of stuff. Those are nice, but I do see quite a lot of that. Whereas if you've gone super deep on, I made this super cool inventory system, this is how the whole thing works, and this is why it's better than everything you've ever seen in any other game, because I've built all this whole thing. Wicked. And then you, again, present it really well, and you can talk about it really well, and you can show that you're actually super into it.
Thank you. Anything else?
I mean, I think from my side, I mean, just from personal experience, that there's kind of two things that have always kind of stood out to me, which is, number one, work ethic. These are going to sound kind of cheesy, because they are. So work ethic, that's the number one thing everybody talks about. But what kind of bleeds into that, the second thing, is just being passionate, but I mean very passionate and genuinely passionate for what we do. Asking questions, being a sponge, but also asking the right questions at the end of the day. It was something I used to do quite incorrectly, is I just used to ask questions for the sake of it. But trying to draw information that is really going to help you is something that sticks out quite a lot. And you can tell someone's work ethic just from how passionate they are from what they do. And yeah, those are the givens, but they're often glossed over.
Yeah, I was going to actually say a similar thing, like show that you care. Like I'm nowhere near a point to actually be like looking at portfolios and hiring people, but from my experience of going through the interview process, like I think one of the things that really made me stand out from others was actually like doing my research into the company that I was applying for and showing like I do care about this particular job and I know like where they started from. I know like the people, because usually before interviews you get told who's interviewing you. You can look them up on LinkedIn, see their process into the industry as well. So be like, I've researched the company, I know about this, I've researched you. And also like from a design perspective, I know what kind of questions you're probably going to ask me. So I've researched answers to that as well. Like it just shows that you care from the get-go and like sets a really good boundary. It can only really go up from there.
Cool, thank you very much. So let's step back a little bit away from seeing how that applicant shines in the application pool. What should students be putting on their portfolios effectively? And we've got completely different disciplines here, and Rach, I'm sure you're going to mention like ArtStation and stuff like that. With programming and design, it's more portfolio from like a website point of view normally, but like how much work should students be putting on their portfolios? How should they present it and to make sure it really shines out? Rach, do you want to?
I'll go. I've spoken to people a lot about this today, but I think, and people are not going to like this answer, but it is dependent on where you want to apply. You're going to have to change your portfolio all the time. There's some caveats to that where, like, if you want to go into stylized work, there's a realm of certain stylized games where you could probably use the same portfolio, for example. But I think the best thing to do for students is focus it maybe like if you want to do characters, there's a lot of people who want to do character concept art. It's very competitive, and I will say unless you're absolutely amazing, you're probably going to struggle. I did teach one student who went on to do that, and again she was like incredible at it. But I think it's better to just have a variety of stuff to make you more valuable as a concept artist, because you're probably not going to end up just working on one thing. So I love characters, but I spend most of my time doing props. And I think having props in there as a concept artist is an incredible thing to have. That will make you way more employable instantly, because most people will just have characters or environments. I think if you do want to focus, have like 70% of one thing, so characters, and then the rest of it, environments and props, just to show that you can do a little bit of everything. I think the main thing is, and I think someone else touched on it as well, but just go away and look at the companies you want to apply for. Show them that if you apply there, you could fit in there straight away. If you're applying somewhere and your work is nothing like what they're doing, it's not going to work out. In terms of like how much, less is more. I've told people this multiple times, but if you've got like 10 to 15 projects in there, even as a concept artist, no one's going to be looking through all of those. Unfortunately, they just don't have time. I think the best thing to do is have like maybe 6 that are really like stand out, multiple images. It's really well fleshed out and things like that. I think definitely less is more from a concept point of view.
Thank you. Chris, for programming.
I think I'm a bit of a hippie when it comes to some of the portfolio content stuff, because I usually give very similar advice to what you were saying. It's all your best work on however you choose to present it. It's all your best work. Don't overload it, but don't have a barren page. It's hard to pick out a specific number of projects you should have. I think mine had 3, but you could have one really great one with great write-up, loads of videos and all that good stuff, or you could have 10 individual demonstrations of different technical topics that you've got. But in addition to that, I always quite like to see some of the other stuff you've been up to. So although I don't have time to go nitty-gritty with all of the stuff that you've got on your portfolio, but I've told like half the people here today this story. I read the sentence in a CV, I am a passionate, whatever the discipline is, and actively or regularly improving my skill at insert whatever they're trying to learn. And then I can't find any evidence on the portfolio. I can't see any evidence in the CV. And then I ask them in the interview what they're doing. And they go, oh, yeah, one day I did this challenge thing. Okay, what else did you do? And there's nothing else that they did. Whereas a student that puts that in their CV and then in their portfolio has like a I'm learning section, like a separate area that's off the main page, but like isn't it, you press the burger menu at the top of your page and you can see I am learning, you click that and you get 15 different Inktober years that you've been doing your illustration work practice, advent of code challenges, where you're just pushing your skills forwards. None of it's a portfolio piece by itself, but the fact that you're doing all of that work is demonstrating that not only can I do all of this super cool stuff on the main page, I am growing, I am pushing forwards, this is how I'm doing it, here's the evidence. Now you can see that passion with capital P that everyone likes to talk about is nicely demonstrated. And other than that, present it however you like. The common theme is a website, but ultimately whatever works.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I think echoing what Rachel said about quality over quantity, and then also being mindful that you need to be self-critical, so going back over old pieces and go, is this reflective of where my standard is now, especially for art? If you've got pieces from like first year, you're in final year, and you think, oh, that's a bit naff, delete it, because you're only as strong as your weakest piece. That is saying to an employer, I think this is my best work ever. So yeah, being self-critical, going back and doing that. And equally, again, with the continual learning, so if we can, a lot of the times as a recruiter, I will look at the dates that you've updated your portfolio. If you graduated, I don't know, say 2023, and you've not touched your portfolio since, but someone else who graduated the same year, who's continually learning, continually updating her portfolio, they're not going to get left behind by, new tech, new tools. But if you just graduate and then think, well, portfolio is done now, you might fall behind very quickly and then find it really hard to sort of keep that momentum when, finding a job and hitting the ground running.
Go make it.
I feel like I've almost forgotten the question at this point.
So how can just to reiterate, like, how can we get a portfolio to really stand out, and how should students like present their work and stuff?
Right, yeah. I think at the beginning it was we were saying like make it niche to the role that you're going into. I think with design, a lot of times when you go into it, they want you to kind of have a broad understanding of all the roles in design. There's so many that I'm sure you've heard today, like level, narrative, gameplay, systems. And a lot of the times when you go, I'm just a default designer. So when you go into industry, they will sometimes ask you to be able to fulfill a lot of those roles. So I think your portfolio can definitely be broader. I think something that was important to me personally is I did some programming work at uni, and it wasn't important, it wasn't a part of the job description in any sense, but it's something that I wanted to be able to present and say, this is something that I know that not every designer will have that knowledge of. And I believe it will really help me in this role. It wasn't necessarily what I was being told to do with my portfolio, but I felt it would strengthen me compared to others. And so I made sure it was, the top 3 that I had there, one of them was a programming project, even though I wasn't applying to any programming roles. I felt like it gave me that step up compared to others. So assess what you're putting in, depending on what role you're going into, basically.
Cool. I think for me, in a more general sense, so not towards one specific department, whatever the case is just being able to explain your thought process and how you went through either a project or something that you've created. Usually what happens, and I fell into this trap, is that you kind of throw the end work right at the top and it's like, pff, awesome. And then the description is, I made this thing because it's cool. And that doesn't help anybody. People who interview, people who are looking at the portfolio, they want to see how you work and why, and how you've got to that decision, and what you would do differently, what problems you came up against, and what you would do differently next time, or how you resolve those issues. And that basically just helps to understand how you would fit into a studio setting in terms of how your thinking would fit into what they're trying to hire for, what you're looking at. And media is a really good thing as well. Videos are great because, people don't have a lot of time nowadays. They look at your portfolio for 15 seconds. So if you can get a video in there kind of just explaining all of that in 5 minutes, then, saved a lot of time, I guess.
Cool. Thank you very much. So stepping back even further from the portfolio piece, and it's definitely been approached in some of the answers you've given so far, but whilst everyone's kind of at university, what should they be doing outside of their studies to help improve their employability?
Game jams.
That is
Game
a good
jams.
answer. Game jams is one that I did illustration just to so my background wasn't in concept, and I think that's something I would have definitely benefited from. I think that in itself is super useful, especially for concept in just terms of knowing how to interact with other people in your team, because we do a lot of that. I think something else that's good is just have hobbies. I know that might not necessarily seem a direct link as oh, this is going to make me a better artist, but it helps you avoid burnout. It'll teach you other things about yourself and build interest within your team and things like that as well. I think setting yourself small goals is really good for when you want to improve. It's very, very easy to be I need to get better at all these things. We all do. Even now, I'm sure we'll all admit that we need to get better at things, and you just can't do it all. And I think just going easy on yourself and just setting yourself a project where you just need to improve on one thing, and that's it. Don't focus on anything else, and you just take baby steps, and you will gradually see improvement. And it will be quite hard, because I think it takes a while, and then you just have this moment where you level up, and then you're right, I've got this thing now, and then you can start again and start doing it, and it'll never go away. And I think you always have to always be learning. Don't ever think that even when you finish uni, you've got it, because you're always going to be learning something new. But I do think that trying to take baby steps and do it one little thing at a time is really, really important.
You mentioned games jams.
Yeah.
Would you want to kind of elaborate on how that helps?
Yeah. When I went to uni, I'd never touched a game engine before. So everything was very daunting. I chose a course that had art, programming and design, and you kind of eventually narrowed into what you wanted to do. And through uni, met a lot of other students, obviously, and by making friends with people and you almost piggybacking off their confidence, and they would do game jams, and I'd sort of be okay, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I think to start with, if you've never done one, it's very daunting, but then you sort of realize it never needs to be finished or good, and I think that's why they're so important. Is you have all these uni projects and you're very stressed about deadlines and grades, and then you're able to do this thing that is a lot more fun and flexible and free for when you want to do it and for how long, and the result doesn't matter at all, and you can do them whenever you want. So I just think it's a really good way to build your confidence in it, because I'd never done any design, and I didn't really do much even in second year before I managed to get my internship, but I got interviews because of game jams and showing my work from that, as opposed to what my uni provided me. So it's just, yeah, it's really good, I think.
Cool, thank you. Chris, you've also mentioned advent of code in one of your previous answers. Could you elaborate on that sort of process and how it steps away a bit from a games jam and just more into stuff?
Yeah, I was going to say expand on the game jam idea and to just simply say practice. So whatever it is you're doing, just practice it. Drawing, coding, designing, it's all like learning a musical instrument. You can't none of us just show up to work able to do it, or see a problem for the first time and know exactly how to solve it. Half of seniority is the fact that you've seen that problem before and you're relying on how you saw the previous person solve it to try and solve it for your case. So if you practice now, and as much as you can, you'll kind of do all of that before you have to do it for real. So Advent of Code is it's a coding challenge. It starts in December. Every single day a new problem is posted, and you can do it in whatever language you like. And you post your answer, and you get told whether you're correct, and you come back the next day. And it gets progressively more difficult through Christmas. There is Ludum Dare. There is loads of games, like code challenge websites, where somebody who has probably a little bit too much time on their hands has come up with specs for loads of really cool applications that they feel like they're lifted from university assignments, some of them, because they've really gone into detail of what's necessary, but not told you how to code any of it, and it's entirely up to you, and you can take it and make what you want out of it. They're all super, super cool. But I shall also just say, everything we've just talked about is like in your own time stuff outside of class, and not everybody has time to do that for whatever reason. And I just want to make sure that I say that it is not necessary to have done that. I cheated a little bit and didn't do that. I didn't do any side projects really that were in my portfolio. All my portfolio pieces were university pieces. I just pushed them a bit further because that was faster and more efficient to take a thing that I'd already finished and put more in it. So I think my master's project in particular, my supervisor at the time just told me to stop because I was killing myself. I was putting too much extra into it and pushing it beyond the scope. But that's what ultimately got my job. So that wasn't a side project. That was me doing what was necessary for university, and just taking it a little bit further. So as long as you can prove to us you can do whatever the role is that we've asked you to do, that's all we need. So if you can do that in your regularly scheduled lesson hours, fantastic, because you have probably got something really important to do, like looking after a loved one or caring for something or something like that. So if you're one of those people, don't worry. Obviously, if you have the time, practice. Like, throw yourself at it and do it. But if you don't worry.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. That was a really good point to say. Lauren, were you about to add to that?
Yeah, sure. One thing that you can do outside of academia is so being employed makes you more employable. So a lot of people think if they've got a part-time job in hospitality, retail, coffee shop, whatever it is, it's not relevant. It absolutely is, especially because we want evidence of those soft skills. And turning up to work on time, managing multiple things at the same time. So your university deadlines, your work deadlines, working well in a team, dealing with difficult customers at work. All of those things demonstrate those soft skills. So they absolutely are relevant. So if you've had any work experience, put that on your CV. And we'd much rather see that than just a blank page with I went to university and did games.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so from my side, I remember reading this book, and I can't remember what the name of it or who wrote it. It was a design book, but the one point was consume everything. We are in a very influential creative industry that broadens across multiple spectrums, from film to music and so forth, right? And everybody is obviously consuming media all the time, but we're talking everything from Twitch to books to obviously film, animation, and breaking down how those projects were created, not just watching it or consuming it in a way where it's, oh, that was really cool, but more of a case of, how would I do that, or what's the breakdown? For example, I started in my brain after I read this, I started thinking about the traffic light system and how that was designed and why it was designed. I started breaking it down. Now, for an artist, it could be different. So if they saw a traffic light, they would go, how would I put this together? What tools would I use? Would I use ZBrush for this? Maybe not. And instinctively, you just kind of improve subconsciously, without even trying, really. It's one of those things that we kind of do every day, but if you can relate it to what you're doing within your studies, yeah, it'll improve greatly.
Cool, thank you. That's very detailed answers across the board. Meg, you mentioned you did an internship there, so we'll come on to that in a second. But can I just ask the panel who else did an internship here during their university studies? So it's just Chris and Meg. Cool. Meg, pass on to you. How did you find that the internship helped you when you returned back to university and then ultimately graduated?
Yeah, really, really helped me. Well, for after uni or after the internship, I got a job at Lucid from it, which is why I'm currently here right now on this side, which is really strange for me because I only graduated last year. But yeah, I hinted at it before that I had never done anything in games before uni. Was going to do maths at uni, had the brain for it, but wanted to do something more fun with it, which is why I thought programming for games would be a good route for me to take. And just through uni, I realized it wasn't quite clicking as I thought it would, and the design aspect really interested me, but we hadn't really touched on it very much when I was applying for internships. But I just decided to put my all into it, and kind of similar to what you were saying, just everything in my surroundings, I was just really trying to take in. And when I was playing games, really just thinking about the actual design behind it, which helped me with my research for when I was trying to think of answers to questions in interviews and stuff. But yeah, I kind of just ended up, I was going to say blagging my way through, but it wasn't. It was a lot of hard work in my second year to really get that CV nailed down and make sure that I was really prepared for interviews. So even though I felt like I was really on the back foot because a lot of people had gone to like college and stuff for the games and I didn't even know it was a thing at that point, I just decided through like using the careers team at my uni, who really gave me confidence to be like, no, you know what you're good at. How you present it to them really matters. Just give it a go. And I'm so glad I did because I managed to, you know, clearly I was passionate and they could see that. And I put in the work before the interviews and they could tell. And I, progressed through and through it. And I got 2 internships that year. One that was a 3-month one before my year long at Lucid. And then, I'm here now. So I guess I'm trying to say with that really long-winded answer of even if you're not confident, I'd literally done one module in design and I managed to get 2 internships from it. It's not to do with your experience at all. It's if you were really willing to put in the work, you will get there, but you need to actually put time in and dedicate a lot to getting there, I guess.
One of the key things I think you said there as well is just like you worked with the university's career team, which I think is very much a underrepresented resource, right? A careers team at a university know how to go through that interview process, how to prepare for it, and how to get you ready for interviews. So it's a good resource to make sure you make use of. Chris, same question to you about how you felt the internship helped you throughout the rest of your degree and ultimately your job.
Okay. Well, firstly, I'll just mirror that the careers team was super helpful for me as well. If you've never gone and spoken to them, please go make an appointment and go and speak to them and practice stuff. They were the ones that actually helped me get my internship in the end. My first interview I ever had, I crashed and burned super hard. It was one I really wanted. I was really annoyed. So for the next one, I went to the careers team and they did a whole mock. And then the interview was a breeze. And I got straight through it and got the internship. So well recommended. For the actual internship itself, I didn't do a games one. I just spent a year programming. I was working for a science company, making their analysis package, doing all of the data collection and the visualization graphs and all that sort of stuff. And it was just really enlightening to learn how to code all day, every day for full time, and get all of the things that the university tries really, really hard to create situations to practice working in teams, to try and get that industry experience, but ultimately it's kind of like it's like a faked version of it, and it doesn't always work if not everybody who's part of that team is as engaged. But when you're in the job, everybody who's at that job is engaged or they're not working there anymore. So it's a bit more of a realistic situation, and it was just incredible practice. I remember coming back from that, and I could pick out who in my year had done a programming placement and who hadn't done a programming placement. It was incredibly obvious within the first few weeks. We started doing a module to build a game engine, and all the students who'd done a programming placement in any language. I did also games typically are in C. A lot of them are in C++. My placement was in C#. But it didn't matter. I could transfer all of that soft skill learning stuff. We were talking about soft skills again earlier. All of that came back into university, and you could pick out everybody in the room. You did a programming placement. You did a programming placement. You definitely didn't. You definitely did a placement, but not programming. So you're showing some soft skills improvement, but not the how to write code all day, every day. And just made the final year go so much more smoothly, and probably facilitated me doing too much. Because I now knew how to do too much. But no, it was really good. If you have the chance or the ability to do a placement as part of your degree, give it a go. And if you can swap to something which creates the opportunity for you to do a placement, please go and do that. If you can't find something and it's not working out, then swap back to the thing that means you don't do it, but just have a go. The worst thing that happens is no one calls you back and you do the final year of your degree and it's fine. But in the best case, you actually get a placement and you get the same experience that we had, where you get all that learning of doing it on the job. You make a bunch of friends and new connections with people that help you in your professional life, and you'll come back even stronger and make even better use of the final year of your degree.
Cool. Thank you very much, Chris. So kind of a last sort of like question from me before I start to pass it over to the audience is, let's say they're successful, they get a job, and they join your companies. What's that typical first stretch of work look like, and how is the integration into the team? And I'm sure it's going to be very different for all of you, but what do you see the graduate, like a graduate, a new starter coming into the company, how do you feel them onboarding them, like getting used to working in that the game studio and getting used to working in a bigger team on a pre-existing code base or a game or an art pipeline, and how do you help onboard them into that process? Anyone?
I can go first
Yep.
again. So for our team, I'm actually going through all this right now. I've only recently moved over to FC, but you'll always be assigned a mentor, and they're your first point of call for all your questions, and they should be somebody that knows where everything is or who to talk to at the very least, and they'll help you find your way. I imagine it's pretty much the same everywhere else, that you'll get somebody like that. And there'll probably be some sort of onboarding scheme, like, please read this and do these sets of training. There will be a whole bunch of probably quite boring but legally required how to not fall down the stairs training type stuff to get done. But then there'll be more interesting, this is how you use our tech, this is how you do your job in our situation type stuff. And that could take a variable number of weeks. And once everybody is comfortable that you're ready, you'll probably get given something quite small to get started, just to use some of the things that you've learned in a way that's not going to block the whole team because you broke the build and you blew everything up and you've destroyed the servers, or you've taken the game down for the live players or something crazy like that. So something that hopefully can slide in without problems. But if there are problems, it will be relatively contained. They will help you do all of that. They'll probably watch it more closely than you. And if there are problems, they'll jump over and help you resolve them. And if there aren't, you'll probably get some congratulations and then given something bigger or more scary to have a go at, and then slowly build you up over a longer period of time. I think when I joined Codemasters, it was really like a year before I felt like I knew enough people around the team to be quite self-sufficient in going to get information myself and to just crack on with things by myself. And I think it's probably going to be the same on this team that I've just moved to as well. And I think that's perfectly fine. We're all on this, regardless of seniority, have this onboarding progression as you move through, and it takes time. And good teams will look after you through that.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to add to that? Lauren?
Yeah. I think our setup's quite similar in that when a junior comes on, they are from day one, you'll be an embedded member of a project team. Obviously, we're not going to go, off you go and leave you to your own devices. A lot of us do work remote, but for entry level, we do expect that you would be based in the studio so that you have that extra level of in-person support. Similarly, we also would pair you with a senior so that you've got like an in-person mentor that's in the same discipline on the same project. Preferably someone that's sat either next to you or very near you so that you can bother them constantly. We also you'll have monthly check-ins with sort of discipline heads, just to check how you're doing. You'll also have meetings. The first sort of week or so, we don't expect you to do any actual real development work. You'll be having onboarding meetings, meeting your producers in your team, meeting your entire project team. We have daily scrums, so you know who's doing what, and then you kind of will then splinter off into your own disciplines and kind of connect with them a little bit more than sort of all the disciplines that would be in the stand-ups. Obviously, there are, certain roles will interact more closely with others. So, for example, our environment artists work very closely with level designers, tech designers, both art and programming. So just making sure that you've met everyone. And then, similar setup to what Chris said. So you might be given a very small feature to work on at first, see how you get on. We log work tickets through Jira, so everyone knows what they're doing, what the deadlines are. It's all laid out for you, so that you wouldn't really get lost. So I think in games, like, very rarely would you be working on something completely alone. There's always a team involved, so it's never a solo project.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, so from my side, all of that's fairly similar, and it's a lot of information to take in. So the one thing that I always remember doing myself is forget everything you think you know as soon as you get in. And I'm not saying like, oh, just chuck all the skills that you've just spent years and years working like out the door. That's not what I mean. I mean more tear it down to a foundational level of like you're going to university again for the first time and ask questions and then ask them again. And keep asking, because like there's a lot of information that gets piled onto you, and you might not know like what's happening. And then if you just don't ask the questions, then you might forget. But yeah, I always remember just tearing everything down to a foundational level, and then learning everything back up to the way that the studio wanted it to be learned.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll pass it over to the floor. We don't have a spare mic for this, so we're just going to have to. So yeah, cool. So yeah, we'll pass it out to the floor. If you've got any questions, just raise your hand. That'd be great. Yep, if you just shout it out for me, I'll bring back up.
So two of you had placement year on the internship. For the other three of you, how did you kind of overcome that disparity in experience? And what did you do?
Okay, so for those of you on the panel that haven't had, that didn't do an internship, how did you overcome the disparity in the skill from the people that did the placement?
I guess I can go for that one. I think it's obviously internships are invaluable, and I think like you've got like if you can get one, go for it. But I do think it's important to remember like it's not the only way. So for me, for example, I didn't study concept art. I studied illustration, and I spent a lot of my time doing freelance work. I even took on freelance work while I was studying. And I think I learned a lot from that, from working with so many different types of people, whether it was like an art director or just a random person wanting to start their own company. And I think that really helped me get a job at Flix, because I'd had that sort of experience of working within teams and lots of different teams. And again, adding to what you were saying about asking lots of questions, I knew how to do that. So I do think if you can get an internship, go for it. But if you can't, think of other ways that you can build those skills up. Again, like part-time jobs, don't discredit them. They will help you. Don't think, oh, well, I can't get a job in a like games relevant thing for now, so I'm just going to leave it. Go and get a job in a shop, in a restaurant. One of my favorite things I ever did was I was a waitress, and I loved that job because I got to speak to people, like so many different types of people, and deal with so many situations. And I think there's other ways to sort of like build up those other skills. I don't think it for 1 second necessarily puts you at a disadvantage unless you let it. If you let it and tell yourself, well, I've not got an internship, so I'm not going to make it, then you probably won't. I think you've just got to go other ways about it.
Thank you. Yep.
QA. Nah, look, I mean, from my side, I didn't really know what placements were until, because I studied in South Africa, so I studied from Cape Town. I didn't know what placements were. My mentality was, oh, I'll go to the UK and get a games job. It'll be easy. It wasn't easy. So immediately my mentality switched to, okay, so what other areas could I potentially go into? And I just remember QA being one thing. But that's not to discredit like the QA role either. I learned more from QA about the industry and the way that design worked than I ever did when I was in university. But it is a different route. The only thing is that it kind of does need to be treated with the respect of the role, because a lot of people just look at it and go, it's the guys that play the games. But that's not really the truth. But that's kind of the way that I kind of went around it. And then, again, just that work ethic and passion for it. Like, I just kind of showed the external QA studio that I first went to that I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I would happily do this for free. Like, if they wanted me to do that. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got around it.
Lauren, get to that.
My route in, I guess, is slightly different. When you work in operations, so I'm not in development and in recruitment, I'm on the more operational side of a business. I started off working in human resources in 2014 in sort of the retail sector. Then I moved over to legal. Then I did business consultancy. Then I did fintech. Then I landed my job in games. So it wasn't always on my radar or my plan to work in games. It's just kind of a bit of a happy accident, and now been here 3 years and really enjoy it. So yeah, with the operations side, I think it's not as linear to get in. Like if you're good at, it could be marketing, it could be recruitment, it could be HR, it could be IT. There are all these, or finance, there's all these other aspects of business that people often forget about in games because they're like, no, I want to make games. You can still be games adjacent.
I suppose just another question for to recontextualize it as well, just for yourself, Lauren. With your working in recruitment, I'm sure you hire a bunch of graduates all the time that never did a placement effectively, and it kind of goes back to some of the other questions, but it's like making sure your portfolio shines out, making sure you're doing the games jams and all that sort of stuff. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely gives you an edge. It's one of those things, if we're weighing up 2 people and one's done a placement, one hasn't, they might have a little bit more of an edge. They might have more examples to talk about. They've had that in studio environment experience. They might know a little bit more about like what workflows and pipelines look like. So they're probably a little bit more employable. But I can't even think of any, if any of our grads had placement experience. But yeah, it's going to be one of those things that there's, if we are looking at 2 people versus one another, like it might just give you a little bit of an edge. But there are certainly, we've even got people that might not have studied, they might be self-taught. Again, it's going to come back to the weight of their portfolio, like how good are they at doing what their discipline is. If they're self-taught, but they are, really, really good, then, it doesn't matter whether you did placement, whether you got a PhD, because you've taught yourself all those skills. And I think we have a lot of respect for people that are self-taught as well. And sometimes people that they might do a degree in a different area and then decide they want to go into games. And I almost have maybe a little bit more respect for them if they have had to learn off their own back than someone that might have just, gone to uni and kind of gone the traditional route, I guess.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Any other questions from the crowd? It's quite quiet this time. Anyone? Oh, there we go. Yep.
Are there any sort of common sort of pitfalls or big mistakes that are made in portfolios that you'd advise people to sort of look out and make sure they don't do?
Thank you. So are there any common pitfalls that you find in portfolios that you advise against doing?
I wouldn't say this is a pitfall, and once again, I've never hired anyone, so maybe take it with a pinch of salt. But if your portfolio is just uni work, there's going to be everyone else in this room plus everyone else out there that has the same thing. You've done the same modules, the same projects. It's the extra stuff or the twist you can put on your uni projects that makes the difference. You don't want it to be a copy paste of everyone else's. So just make sure there is that something else on there. Otherwise, it will just look the same as everyone else's at staff's, I guess.
I've said this to everyone today, but a lot of the times you do a lot of group projects at uni and you want to stick those in your portfolio, which is great. But if you don't tell us what your role was within that project team, we're not even going to look at it because you're like, oh yeah, I did this in a group of 10, but we don't know what your contribution was. So clearly define what your contribution was, who decided who was going to do what did you define, because otherwise it's kind of redundant in there.
I was just going to add something to what you both said, to be honest, about university projects. Don't put in the description that this was for this module. Tell us about the project, tell us a bit more. You don't even say that it's a university project. And I think the same goes for tutorials as well. Don't do a tutorial and then put it in your ArtStation or whatever because it's so obvious. Do the tutorial and then apply it to your own work in a new way. Show what you've learned. Don't just show that you can follow instructions because it's not super useful.
Chris?
I'll just offer a bunch of the usual common basics, like make sure everything works. I've seen lots of portfolios where there's dead links or the titles of projects don't match what they say in the CV and I can't find them and I get all lost and confused. They haven't tested on a range of the popular browsers. I use Firefox for all my browsing. Most people use Chrome, so just try all of the usual major ones. And then the last one is claiming stuff that you haven't done. returning earlier to what that cookie cutter phrase I was talking about with the I am a passionate person regularly doing X, and there's nothing there to back that up. Yeah, just make sure everything you claim, everything you write down that you said you did, prove it, so that I know it's real and I don't question anything.
So this isn't so much of a portfolio one for me, but I just want to kind of add with CVs, when people rate their skills out like 1 out of 10, I'm going to put that onto the panel to see what they think about that.
Everybody I've spoken to hates those with a passion. I've not met a single person that likes it.
It's just rating yourself down, though. Like, unless you put a 10 out of 10, if you put 9 out of 10, it's just basically saying, I'm not actually as good as I could be at this.
I got absolutely grilled in an interview for that once. They were like, what does 9 out of 10 mean? Like, in the spectrum. I was like, really good? And they were like, no, what does it mean? And I was like, I don't know. So, yeah, I took that out immediately.
Lauren?
Yeah, we try and advise people not to do it. I know, like, visually it looks more appealing than saying, like, oh, I know how to use the software. But, yeah, we don't know what 80% of Unreal Engine means. Like, you can use it or you can't. Like, it's not quantifiable.
Yeah.
What does 100% mean? If you've got 5 out of 5 on C++, do you know all of it?
You've digested the documentation.
Yeah. I have known people to test this in an interview where somebody's put, I am 5 out of 5 on something, and the person that they're talking to really does know C++ to a 5 out of 5 standard, and they go, okay, how's that? And you just watch the person evaporate before your eyes. It just invites really terrible. Don't do it. Just put a list of your skills, put them in the order that you're strongest, because that's generally what's perceived, and then just leave it at that. Use the space for something else.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, time for one more question. There was one at the back. Yep. Oh, that's a good question, thank you. So I suppose like speculative applications and cold emailing and just reaching out to industry people, recruiters, etc., for both placement and graduate jobs. Thoughts? Lauren, I suppose I'll pass this one to you if that's okay.
It's a difficult one. It's going to be an opinion piece. We do take speculative applications at Wushu, but we only check them when we're actively hiring. So we get hundreds of people sending them in, but if you're expecting a response, you're probably going to be waiting quite a while. And also, yeah, there's probably a lot of people doing the same thing. So most of the time, I would say, like, you're at networking events, you're doing, you're already here, you're putting yourself in front of people. So if you can connect with them on LinkedIn, you'll see when they are advertising. So that might be a better time to send a slightly warm email rather than just going in cold, like, oh, you're not hiring, you haven't hired anyone in 2 years. I don't even know if your company's still operating. Probably not worth, you're wasting your time as well as theirs. But if you're seeing, say, like, there's companies advertising graduate roles or internships, go in, you've got a warm lead there. So just being conscious of your own time as well, because, looking for a job is a job in itself. But yeah, you don't want to be wasting your time just emailing people out of the blue, because it can get annoying as well when you're just getting irrelevant emails. Like, you might be emailing a company that just hands down doesn't do interns, never taken interns. So yeah, try and do it, again, going back to Meg's point about researching the companies, like, there are companies that regularly take interns, they regularly do work experience, placement years, stuff like that. So, and keeping an eye at what time of year they do that, so that you can, make sure that when they are hiring, you're top of the list, rather than hiring, like, if you message them in December, but they don't hire till May, they're probably going to have forgotten about you by then. So just do some research.
Yeah, it's just a good point. I just want to kind of reiterate on there. It's the networking side, right? Just coming to events like this, going to industry meetups and all that sort of stuff is just getting to know people does help a little bit, or they'll be able to, like, tell you when the job's going live and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anything anybody wants to add to that particular one?
Depending on who the company is, you can cheat a little bit with the cold. It's not necessarily a cold email, but again, through the networking side of things, I come to staffs all the time to meet the freshers and do the mock interviews in the final year, and everyone's sick of seeing me, probably.
That's not true.
But through that, I meet lots of really cool students, and some of them asked me before we were bought by EA, when we were just codemasters, we didn't really do internships, but people would ask me, hey, will you do one? Because I knew the student through the university, I already knew they were quite strong, so I would go to my lead like, hey, I have this really strong student. We've always talked about internships. We should absolutely do it. And there's no guarantee that it's ever going to happen. But if you know somebody in a company and it's the right sort of size studio where they maybe don't have a really well-oiled machine and process for this, you might be able to convince somebody to convince somebody. But yeah, I'm not sure I've ever sent just a cold email. And like we've had evergreen type roles that nobody ever looks at.
Cool. So yeah, I'm just going to be a little bit biased here, but it's basically leverage the events and networking opportunities at university to do that. So again, coming to places like this, going to the guest talks, participating in interview processes and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so we are at time, but I want to just end this on kind of a final point. So if you could just sum up it very, very quickly, a best practice for the students, like some final advice on how they can get into the industry effectively. What would just a sentence, basically. Rach, sorry to put you on the spot.
I think just get your head down and make the most of the time you've got, because you'll never have this amount of time again. That's the best thing I always used to say to people.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Just practice and keep showing up. Just if you're here, you're talking to us, you're making the networking connections that you're going to need to get in. And the people who aren't here aren't doing that, so you already have an advantage.
Thank you. Lauren?
I would say, like, just be realistic. Like, the job market in games right now isn't that great, but there are so many transferable skills that you're learning. If you're learning 3D modeling, if you're learning programming. So I think Rachel said it earlier, like, you can get a job somewhere else while you're still looking in games. So not giving up on, those skills, keep building on those skills. Yeah, because so many different industries are starting to utilize that tech now as well.
I'd just say be confident and apply to anything and everything. Don't be precious over it. Like, the internship I ended up getting wasn't actually the job that I applied for. So, I had no clue what level design was, as it clearly showed in my interviews. So just don't be precious. Be open to any opportunity, because as you said, it's a hard industry to get into at the moment. So be open.
Thank you. And the final piece of advice?
I'm just going to echo what everybody else said, but work ethic and enthusiasm, everything else can be taught.
And thank you very much. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to the audience, and I hope you've enjoyed your day.